Lift the lid and look at the grates. The bars are coated in something black and uneven, thick on top, thicker underneath, with hard flakes standing up along the edges like burnt paint. Run a finger along the side of a bar, and it comes away sticky and brown, not dry. Down in the corners where the bars meet the frame, there is a build that has been there for years. When the grill was new, those bars were smooth enough to see a straight reflection down the length of them, and a chicken thigh released from the metal with a light lift of the tongs. Now the skin tears every time. Black flecks end up on the food, and there is a bitter, ashy taste on the underside of everything you cook. So you do one of three things. You attack it with a wire brush until your shoulder aches. You pull the grates out and drop them in a tub of hot, soapy water overnight. Or you look up a replacement set, find a number between $60 and $200, and put it in a cart. All three of those are wrong. It is not that you did not scrub hard enough, and it is not dirt. Dirt comes off. Look at what you have already poured on that grate. Degreaser, dish soap, oven spray, boiling water, and the black is still exactly where it was. That is not a cleaning failure. That is the material telling you something. Whatever is on those bars does not dissolve, because it is no longer the kind of thing that can dissolve. That crust is not burnt food. It is the oil itself, changed into a different substance, one that has more in common with hard plastic than with grease. And the thing that made it is not the cooking. It is what you do at the end of every cook. When the food comes off, you close the lid and walk away. There is a way to take that back to bare, clean metal, and it costs nothing. No wire brush, no soaking, no product. It takes about 20 minutes, and most of that time the grill is doing the work while you stand there. There is one thing about it that surprises everyone. Halfway through, you have to take the grates out and put them back upside down, and the reason has nothing to do with cooking. Here is what happened to that metal. Fat and cooking oil are liquids made of long molecules. Heat them in the presence of oxygen for long enough, and they do not simply burn away. They react. The molecules link to each other, end to end and side to side, and build a solid network. Chemists call it polymerization. It is the same process that makes linseed oil dry into a hard film on wood. The oil does not evaporate off the wood. It becomes a solid. That is what is on your grate. Every time you cook, a film of fat is left on hot metal. Some of it burns off. Some of it polymerizes into a thin, hard layer. Cook again the next weekend and you lay a new film over the old one and cook that solid too. Layer on layer, season after season. The soft, sticky brown you feel at the edges is fresh grease that has not converted yet. The hard black scale is the part that has. Think about an egg on a plate. Raw, you rinse it off with cold water, and it is gone in 3 seconds. Cook that same egg onto the same plate, and no amount of soap will turn it back into a liquid, because it is not a liquid anymore. The protein has locked into a new structure. Polymerized oil is that, permanently. Soap works by surrounding fat and lifting it into water, and it works beautifully. But there is no fat left on that grate for it to grab. Detergent has nothing to hold on to. This is why every bottle you have tried has failed, and it will keep failing forever. And here is the part that matters most. The standard response to a hard black layer is to grind it off with steel. That does remove some of it. It also takes the smooth outer surface of the metal with it, leaving thousands of fresh scratches and, on cast iron, exposed raw pores. Rough metal holds grease better than smooth metal does, because there is far more surface for it to grip. Then the bare iron rusts, and rust is porous, so it holds even more. Which means the crust that forms after a wire brushing bonds harder and faster than the one you just removed. The grate was not ruined by the grease. It was ruined by the brush you bought to fight it. If that has just explained the last 5 summers of your grill, subscribe now, because what comes next is the part that actually takes it off, and there is no product involved at all. The first method is heat, used deliberately, at a level you have almost certainly never taken your grill to. Understand the target before you start. You are not trying to dissolve that layer or scrape it off while it is hard. You are going to change it one more time. Carbon-based solids do not survive high heat with oxygen present. Take that black polymer well past cooking temperature and it oxidizes, breaks apart, and turns into ash. Ash has no grip on anything. It sits on the metal as a loose gray powder that a cloth removes with a single pass. You are not cleaning the crust. You are converting it into something that cannot hold on. The first thing you do has nothing to do with the grates. Open the bottom of the grill and empty the grease tray. Scrape out the catch pan under the firebox and get the loose sludge out of the bottom. This step is not optional, and the reason is at the end of the video. Now close the lid and turn every burner to high. On a charcoal grill, build a full chimney of lump charcoal, spread it in a single even layer, and put the lid on with both vents wide open. Leave it for 15 minutes. Do not open it. The lid is what makes this work. With the lid down, the whole chamber climbs well over 500 degrees Fahrenheit, and the grate is heated from every direction, top and bottom, by radiant heat coming off the walls as well as the fire underneath. Open the lid, and the top of the grate loses heat to the air and never gets where it needs to be. You will see white smoke coming out of the vents in the first few minutes. That is the residue converting, and it will stop on its own when the easy material is gone. At 15 minutes, kill the burners or close the vents halfway, put on a pair of long welding-style gloves, and lift the grates out with tongs. Flip them over. Put them back in upside down. This is the detail that makes the difference between a grate that comes out half clean and one that comes out uniform, and almost nobody does it. Heat rises, but the fire is underneath. The bottom face of every bar sits inches from the flame and gets far hotter than the top face, which is also the face losing heat to the cooler air near the lid. That is why burn-off leaves the underside gray and clean while the cooking surface is still black and greasy. Flipping the grate puts the stubborn face where the heat actually is. Relight or reopen the vents and give it another 10 minutes with the lid closed. 25 minutes total. When you open it, the bars should be gray, dry, and dusty looking, with the black reduced to a powdery film. The heavy scale on the corners may have swollen and cracked. That is what you want. Now, while the grates are still hot, but no longer glowing hot, take a wooden grill scraper and run it down the length of each bar. A hardwood scraper burns its own grooves into the wood on the first few uses so it matches the exact profile of your grate, which means it touches the top, the sides, and the shoulder of each bar in one pass. It cannot shed anything. It cannot chip enamel. 3 or 4 passes per bar, working with the direction of the bars, never across them. The ash comes off in a gray cloud. Underneath it, the metal. But there is something the scraper will not have solved, and you will see it as soon as the smoke clears. In the corners, along the frame welds, and on the underside of the outer bars, there will still be a dark, slightly tacky film. Those are the places the flame never directly reached, and heat alone did not take them far enough. There will also be fine ash sitting in every crevice, and dry wiping just moves it around. The second method handles both, and it takes 90 seconds. Steam, not soaking, and there is a large difference between the two. Soaking means submerging cool metal in water for hours, which is the single fastest way to rust a cast iron grate and drive moisture underneath every layer you have not removed. Steam means water hitting metal that is still hot enough to flash it instantly into vapor, so the water is gone in a second and never sits on the surface. Wait until the grate is somewhere around 300 degrees. If you flick a drop of water on it and it hisses and skitters instantly, you are in the right range. If the drop sits and boils slowly, it is too cool. If it vanishes silently before it lands, it is still too hot, and the steam will be gone before it does any work. Fold a thick cotton dish towel or 4 sheets of paper towel into a tight pad. Soak it in plain water and squeeze it so it is heavy and wet but not dripping. Grip it in a pair of long tongs. Never in your hand. Press it onto a bar and drag it along the length. You will get a hard hiss and a burst of steam, and the pad will come away black. Refold to a clean face, dip it again, do the next bar. 2 passes per bar. The steam does 2 things. It condenses momentarily inside the pores and crevices where flame never reached and lifts the softened residue, and it carries the loose ash off with the water instead of pushing it into the gaps. Get into the corners with the edge of the pad folded over the tongs. When the pad stops coming back black, that grate is bare. Do not oil it yet, and do not put it away. There is one more layer to deal with, and it is the one that decides whether the shine you are looking at right now lasts a month or a year. The third method uses two things that are genuinely Japanese, and it is worth being clear about the honest part first. A kettle grill on an American patio is not a Japanese object, and there is no ancient Japanese method for cleaning one. What is Japanese is the two ideas underneath everything in this video. Use the mildest thing that will do the job, and repair the surface instead of replacing the object. Both are visible in the tools themselves. The first is a tawashi. It is a stiff brush made from bundled palm fiber, used in Japanese kitchens for scrubbing pots, root vegetables, and iron pans, and it has been made in the same shape for well over a century. The fibers are stiff enough to move residue and soft enough that they cannot scratch enamel, cannot cut into cast iron, and above all, cannot break off and stay behind on a cooking surface. That last point is not a small one. A brush that can lose part of itself into your dinner is a badly designed tool, no matter how well it cleans. A palm fiber brush costs a few dollars and lasts years. The second is what is already sitting in the bottom of your charcoal grill. Wood ash. Wood ash and water make a weakly alkaline solution. It has been used for cleaning across many cultures for a very long time, including in Japan, where ash water has a place in traditional cooking and dyeing. The chemistry is worth understanding because it explains something that has probably confused you for years. Alkali does what detergent cannot. It attacks the chemical bonds inside fats and inside polymerized oil films and breaks them into smaller pieces that water can carry away. That is the entire reason commercial oven cleaner works when dish soap does not. Oven cleaner is a strong alkali. Wood ash water is the gentle version of exactly the same reaction, slow enough that it will not damage iron in the 10 minutes you use it. Take 2 handfuls of ash from a charcoal grill. Use ash from lump, charcoal, or real wood, not from briquettes, since briquettes contain binders and fillers you have no reason to smear on a cooking surface. Put it in a bowl and add water a splash at a time until you have a paste about the consistency of thick pancake batter. Spread it on the cool grate with a cloth, concentrating on the areas that still look darker than the rest. Leave it 10 minutes. Then work it with the wet palm fiber brush along the bars with moderate pressure. You are not grinding. You are giving the alkali contact and agitation. Rinse with clean water and dry the grate immediately and completely. If you cook on gas and have no wood ash, use baking soda paste instead. It is milder and slower, so give it 20 minutes rather than 10, and expect to work a little harder with the brush. All of this belongs to one larger system. If you want the complete Japanese method for keeping a home and the things in it working for decades instead of being replaced, the book is linked in the description, and it is there if you want it. The fourth method is the one that means you never do the first 3 again, and it takes 2 minutes at the end of every cook. The moment the food comes off, before you touch anything else, turn the burners to high and close the lid for 5 minutes. The residue on the bars at that moment is fresh, soft, and largely unconverted. 5 minutes of high heat turns it to ash before it ever gets the chance to become a permanent layer. That alone eliminates the majority of what builds up over a season. Then shut the grill down and let it drop to the point where it is hot but not roaring. Fold a paper towel into a tight square, hold it in long tongs, and put a small amount of high smoke point oil on it, about a teaspoon. Grapeseed, canola, refined avocado, or any neutral oil with a smoke point above 400 degrees. Not olive oil, which smokes low and leaves gum behind. Not butter. Wipe every bar once, top and sides. You want a surface that looks barely damp, not wet. Excess oil is the enemy here, because a heavy coat does not convert cleanly and turns tacky. What happens next is the same chemistry that ruined the grate, running in the direction you want it to run. That thin film polymerizes onto the metal in a smooth, hard, bonded layer, just microns thick. On cast iron, that is called seasoning. It fills the pores, it keeps water off the iron so it cannot rust, and it is naturally slick, so the next thing you cook releases instead of tearing. There is a distinction here that takes most people years to learn. Thin, dry, smooth, and black is seasoning, and it is the most valuable surface on your grill. Thick, rough, sticky, and flaking is buildup, and it has to go. They are the same substance at different stages. 2 minutes of oiling protects the first. Walking away without it guarantees the second. The Japanese word for this kind of small, repeated, unglamorous maintenance is kaizen, and a grill is a perfect example of it because 2 minutes a week replaces 2 hours a year and a set of grates every 4 seasons. The fifth method is not a technique. It is a rule, and it decides everything. Clean the grate at the end of the cook, never at the start of the next one. At 400 degrees, residue that is 30 seconds old comes off with one pass of a scraper. Left to cool and sit for 6 days through a rain shower and a hot afternoon, that same residue has hardened, taken on grit and pollen, absorbed moisture, and started converting into the layer you now cannot remove without a full burn-off. Nothing about the material changed except time and temperature. The work is identical either way. The only variable is whether you do it while it is easy or after it has become difficult. There is a second half of this rule. A grate goes away dry. Always. Never put the cover on a grill that has just been rinsed, and never close the lid on a damp grate, because a closed grill is a small, dark box that holds humidity against bare metal for days. Before the part of this video that will save you the most money, if you have not subscribed, this is the moment to do it. Here is what does not work, and the specific mechanical reason each one fails. The wire brush. It has 2 separate problems, and they are both serious. The first is that steel bristles work loose, and a loose bristle can stay on the grate, stick to food, and be swallowed. Emergency rooms have treated people for exactly this, and it is the reason many manufacturers have moved away from selling them. The second problem is the one nobody thinks about. On porcelain enameled grates, steel bristles chip the coating. Enamel is glass. Once a chip exposes the steel underneath, rust starts at that point and creeps outward beneath the coating, and no cleaning method reverses it. On bare cast iron, the brush strips seasoning and roughens the pores, which is the process described earlier that makes every future crust bond harder. A wire brush does not clean a grate. It shortens its life, overnight soaking in soapy water. 2 failures at once. Detergent cannot break polymerized oil, so the black layer will still be there in the morning. And hours of submersion is the worst possible treatment for cast iron. Water gets into the pores and under any remaining seasoning, and a soaked cast iron grate can show orange rust within a few hours of coming out of the tub. People do this, see rust, and conclude the grate was finished. The soak finished it. Vinegar, on its own or mixed with baking soda. Mixed together, they react and neutralize each other, and what you are left with is mostly salty water with the useful properties of both gone. Vinegar alone is an acid, and acid does not break down a polymer film either. What acid does do is attack iron directly, which is why a vinegar-soaked cast iron grate often comes out looking dull gray and flash rusts as it dries. The dishwasher. Dishwasher detergent is strongly alkaline, and combined with an hour of hot water, it will strip every bit of seasoning off cast iron and leave it bare and wet at the end of a cycle. On chrome-plated or porcelain grates, the same cycle attacks the coating at every existing chip. Whatever the manual says, this is a machine designed for plates. The pressure washer. This one is popular because the first minute looks spectacular. A pressure washer at close-range chips, porcelain enamel, drives water deep into the firebox and into gas burner tubes where it sits and corrodes them from the inside and can force water past the ignition components. You clean the grate and damage the grill. The half onion rubbed on hot bars. It provides a little moisture and a little steam, which is why it appears to do something on a lightly used grate. Against a real polymerized layer, it does nothing at all, because there is no mechanism there. It is the steam step from earlier, done weakly, with produce. And the angle grinder or drill-mounted wire wheel. It works, in the sense that a belt sander works on a scratched table. It removes the crust and a measurable amount of metal with it, leaves the surface rough and completely unprotected, and on any coated grate destroys the coating entirely. People do this once and then wonder why the grate rusts through in 2 seasons. So what should you actually own? If you are buying grates, the material decision matters more than the brand. Bare cast iron holds the most heat, gives the deepest sear marks, and is the most forgiving of high heat cleaning. But it demands the 2-minute oil ritual, and it will rust if you neglect it. Porcelain enameled cast iron gives you the heat with no seasoning required, and it is an excellent choice as long as you accept one condition, which is that nothing hard or metal ever touches it. Stainless steel is the practical answer for most people. It cannot chip, it will not rust, it survives burn-off indefinitely, and it tolerates neglect better than anything else. It gives up a little heat retention compared to cast iron, and that is the whole trade. Whatever material you choose, look at the thickness of the bars. Thin rods heat and cool fast, bend over time, and leave weak sear marks. Look for solid rod around 1/4 of an inch or thicker, and avoid chrome-plated wire grates entirely. The plating flakes, and once it starts, there is nothing to be done. For tools, the buying rule is simple, and it covers everything. Nothing that touches a cooking surface should be able to leave part of itself behind. A hardwood scraper, a palm fiber brush, long-handled tongs, thick cotton cloths, and welding gloves. That is the complete kit, and it costs less than one replacement grate. Now the honest limits, because there are things this will not do. It will not repair chipped porcelain. If the enamel is broken and rust has started underneath, the grate will look far better after a burn-off, but the rust will return at those points, and eventually that grate has to be replaced. It will not restore metal that is already gone. Cast iron that has rusted deeply becomes pitted, and pitting is missing material. Cleaning reveals the pits rather than filling them. Such a grate can still cook well once it is seasoned, but it will never be smooth again. On a grate that has 10 years of buildup, one cycle will not be enough. Expect 2 or 3 full burn-offs on separate days, taking a layer each time. Very thick scale insulates the layers beneath it from the heat, which is exactly why it survived this long. And on stainless steel, some of the gold, blue, or gray discoloration will not come off at all. That is heat tinting in the surface of the alloy itself, not residue. It is cosmetic and permanent. The safety part is short and it matters. Empty the grease tray and the catch pan before you run a high-heat burn-off. Accumulated grease plus a closed lid plus maximum heat is how grill fires start. If you do get a flare-up inside, close the lid and shut off the fuel, and never throw water on a grease fire. Wear long welding gloves and use long tongs for everything described here, since a grate at 300 degrees looks identical to a grate at 70. Open the lid with your face back and to the side, because trapped steam and hot air come out fast. On a gas grill, always light with the lid open, and never spray oven cleaner into a warm grill. So, the whole sequence. Burn the grate at maximum heat with the lid closed for 15 minutes, flip it upside down, and give it 10 more, which turns the crust to ash. Scrape it down the length of the bars with a wooden scraper while it is still hot. Wipe it with a wet cloth held in tongs so the water flashes to steam and lifts what heat could not reach. Work an alkaline ash or baking soda paste over anything still dark with a palm fiber brush, then dry it immediately. Burn off for 5 minutes and wipe on a teaspoon of neutral oil at the end of every single cook. And clean it hot at the end, never cold at the beginning. The same thinking, applied to everything else you own, is in the book linked below. What you have at the end of this is not just a clean grate. It is a surface that food releases from, which is the thing you actually lost. Now go look at the shovel or the pruners hanging in your garage, because the orange on them is the same story in a different chemistry. The standard advice is a wire wheel on a drill, and it does clear the rust, along with a layer of good steel, and it leaves the surface bare and rougher than it was, which is precisely the condition rust likes best. Then a spray of water displacing oil that has evaporated off by the following month. There is a way to take rust off a tool for about $2 without removing any metal at all, and to leave a surface behind that does not start again. That is the next video. See you in the next one.